Hello, and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video, we are continuing our look at the Onslaught theme decks, and it's the first set in a block, so you know what that means. It is red-green aggro deck time. So this one is Devastation. Uh, red-green. It's the usual. Let's get looking into it. So, Decklist here, 22 creatures, 5 instants, 5 sorceries, 1 enchantment, 1 artifact, which is, ooh, don't usually see artifacts these days. This is kind of during the period where every artifact is like rare for no reason, and 26 lands. Mana curve off to the side there. Let's look at these creatures. So, red-green deck. So in Onslaught, that means beasts, because that is the tribe that was shared between red and green. So basically in Onslaught, every color had its like main humanoid tribe. So like elves, soldiers, goblins, zombies, wizards. And then there were, I think, 4 other tribes that were then between 2 other colors. So beasts were in red, green, clerics were in white, black. There's another, birds are in white, blue, and there's another one which I can't remember. Basically not important. So red green beasts, which means we're going to have lots of big stompy creatures. Very classic red green. Yeah, let's have a look at these. So we have 2 Barkhide Maulers, 5 mana for a 4/4, has cycling, which is fine. Cycling's back from Urza's block. Basically means if you've got it in hand, you don't want to cast it, pay 2 mana, discard it, and draw a card. Perfectly fine. A single Croson Groundshaker has an ability where you pay 1 green to give a beast trample until end of turn, but 7 mana is obviously very expensive. I think it's a 6/6. Like a clever boy, I've covered up the power and toughness. I need to stop doing that. You have 1 Towering Baloth who's 8 mana for a 7/6. It has Morph, which is good because, obviously that's very expensive, but it has Morph, which means you can pay it face down anytime for only 3 mana. It's a 2/2 creature then with no color and no creature types, and you can turn it face up at any time for its Morph cost. And I've covered up the Morph cost, but the Morph cost is usually like 1 less than its casting cost, usually. 3 Snarling Underaxe, which is 4 mana for a 3/3. 2 colors and 1 green to give a target beast +1/+1 until end of turn, and it has Morph as well. So this is kind of like the bread and butter of the deck, really. This is your tribal pump effect, really. And then a single Venom Spout Brachus, 7 mana for a 5/5. 1 colors and 1 green, tap. It does 5 damage to an attacking or blocking creature with flying, and it has Morph as well. So a lot of expensive creatures here. Moving on to some red beasts. So we have Battering Craghorn, which is 4 mana for a 3/1 first strike. It has Morph. Yep, I think it's 4 mana for a 3/1 first strike is okay. Charging Slateback is 5 mana for a oh god, I've covered up the power and toughness. I think it's a 4/5 or a 4/3. In any case, it can't block and it has Morph. In any case, it's not very good, honestly, I don't think. A single Shaleskin Bruiser who has a whopping 7 mana for a 4/4 with trample, but when it attacks, it gets +3/+0 until end of turn for every other attacking beasts, which I feel like that's one of your game enders there. You like swing with a bunch of beasts, and he would just become huge. So I mean that's okay. He's alright. Just 7 mana though is so expensive. One of the rares of the deck is Tephroderm, 5 mana for a 4/5, which is okay for the time. Whenever a creature deals damage to Tephroderm, Tephroderm deals that much damage to that creature. Whenever a spell deals damage to Tephroderm, Tephroderm deals that much damage to that spell's controller. So yeah, I really like red creatures that have like this the retaliation ability. Where when they get damaged, they do damage back. I always think like it's a really fun ability. I really like Tephroderm. That second ability about when spells do damage to him is going to have a little anti-synergy, which we'll see in a minute. But yeah, I think it's a perfectly fine rare to have in there. It would be kind of scary for an opponent to like attack into or block. Because he just basically if a creature engages him in combat, they're taking basically like double damage. So yeah, he could definitely like punch up quite a bit. Not that he'd have much to punch up to, because there's still like, I mean, there's some big-ish creatures in this block, but yeah, like 4 or 5 is still fairly chunky. And then a single snapping thrag, 5 mana for a 3/3. When it deals combat damage to a player, you can have it deal 3 damage to target creature that player controls. That's a nice effect, especially on a creature with morph. Like that morph cost is very high, but you could potentially swing with this while it's face down. Opponent doesn't block it. This is the dream situation. It gets through. Opponent doesn't block it. You unmorph it. It does 3 damage to your opponent, and then you bolt one of their creatures for another 3. So that's okay, I think. And also, it's like a weird, I don't know, killer dinosaur ostrich, which, I mean, everyone's got to love that, right? So to help with all these expensive creatures, we have some ramp in the form of elves. So we have 3 Wirewood Elves, 2 mana for a 1/2, taps to add green, fine. Don't really care about it having the extra toughness. In my mind, this is just kind of like an inferior Llanowar Elves because it comes down a turn later. You really want like mana dorks like this. You really want to play them as soon as possible. Ideally, like like in turn 1. Yeah, but it's fine. It's fine. It's doing okay here. We have 3 Wirewood Savage. So 3 mana for a 2/2. Whenever a beast comes into play, you may draw a card. That's very good, I think. Note that it doesn't just care about your beast. It's if your opponent plays beasts as well, you get to draw the cards off that. So that's pretty good. A rare case where the symmetrical effect benefits you and you only, which is, I think it's really good. I like Wirewood Savage. And you've got plenty of beasts in here to draw cards. And you have 2 of these out. You're getting 2 cards per beast, which is really, really good. And then 3 Elvish Pioneers, 1 mana for a 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, you can put a basic land from your hand into play tapped. That's really good. I think that's like a really good turn 1 play. Going forest this and then another land. Yeah, you've got 2 land going into turn 2. Yeah, I think that's just good. Honestly, I just think that's pretty good. So yeah, 3 of them. So like definitely like some ramp options to let you cast those expensive beasts. So then we have some red burn spells. So we have 2 Chain of Plasma. I have a bit of a nostalgia for Chain of Plasma, which I'll talk about the card first, and I'll talk about my very specific bit of nostalgia for Chain of Plasma. So 2 mana for an instant, does 3 damage to target creature or player. Then that player or that creature's controller can discard a card, and if they do, they copy Chain of Plasma and choose new target for the copies. So as long as this like because I used to play like multiplayer games like 4 people, so you had cards like this would cause absolute havoc. Like someone would do it and be like, yeah, well screw you, I'm gonna like discard a card and shoot you back, and they'd be like, well screw you, I'm gonna discard a card and I'm gonna do it straight back to you again, and just have like this massive chain of plasma that ended up like wiping out half the board. So this is like a cycle. There's like a chain of every color. This one and the blue one are my favorites. So very quickly, tangent. This is my very specific bit of nostalgia for Chain of Plasma. I built a deck which had Chain of Plasma and Chain of Vapor, which is the blue one that lets you bounce things, and Mindslaver. So the whole idea was you'd pop Mindslaver, control an opponent's turn, and their decisions, and then in their turn you do Chain of Vapor to bounce all their stuff because you'd be like, oh, I bounced that thing, and then because you're controlling them, be like, well, I'm going to choose to copy it and pay the cost by copying it, and target one of my own things, and I'm going to copy it again and target my own things, and then you do Chain of Plasma because now they've got a full hand, and then make them discard their whole hand to copy Chain of Plasma over again, hit themselves. It was very, very janky, but I had a lot of fun playing it. Chain Slaver. Anyway, moving on from weird nostalgia about a sort of a substandard cut. I mean, it's okay actually. Like, it's 3 mana. It's 2 mana at instant speed. Do 3 damage. It's fine in this cruel boltless world. That was fine. Solar Blast is 4 mana instant. Does 3 damage to target creature or player. It has cycling for 3. And you cycle it, it does 1 damage to target creature or player. So I really like these spells in Onslaught block that when you cycle them, they still have an effect. I just think that's like just a nice bit of design. Yeah, I mean 1 damage obviously isn't really going to do much, but like it's better than nothing. So a single Thunder of Hooves. So this is the anti-Sinji with Tephroderm that I mentioned. So it's 4 mana, does X damage to each creature without flying, and each player, where X is the number of beasts in play. So it's basically so the way it's costed, you want this to really do at least 3 damage, right? Because then it's on par with Earthquake. But of course, you have a Tephroderm out. Tephroderm takes damage and then does damage back to you. Also, I mean, it is reliant on having beasts out, and beasts are obviously very expensive. So it would take a while to build up to a point where this would kind of do a decent amount of damage. But then I think you only need like 3 beasts out, because like your beasts are generally kind of big, so they could survive this damage while it clears out smaller enemy creatures. But yeah, it's okay. I say you want it, I think, to do at least 3 damage though. So it's on par with Earthquake. And then a single erratic explosion, so 3 mana sorcery. Choose target creature or player, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card, and it does damage equal to that card's mana value to that creature or player, and then the revealed cards go on the bottom of your library. So you've got a lot of very expensive cards in here, a lot of expensive beasts. One thing that is annoying, that you have to pick the target before you know how much damage it's going to be, so it is like a potential gamble. But I think it's like a calculated risk, because I say you've got so many expensive cards in this deck that this would basically be okay. Like, yeah, it's just, I think there was like a version of this like in a much later set, where you got to know the value before you, and then you chose a target, which is obviously like a much better design. But yeah, erratic explosion, it's okay. And then a single ether charge, 5 mana enchantment. Whenever a beast enters the battlefield under your control, you can have it do 4 damage to an opponent. Yeah, it's fine. Like 5 mana is, I mean, it's expensive, but that's like a really decent chunk of damage. Like 4 damage whenever you get a beast down. Yeah, that's all right. I like ether charge. Single naturalize. So I remember this like there being a bit of like, it was early internet days, but like a lot of online chat, like people being really upset, like disenchant had become green, but like, no, disenchant's a white effect, it doesn't belong in green. Just like, what are you talking about? It's fine. It's fine. If anything, it makes more sense in green. But yeah, so this is where naturalize first appears. It's fine, basic utility card. Single primal boost, 3 mana instant. Target creature +4/+4 till end of turn. You can cycle it. If you cycle it, you still give something +1/+1. Yep, perfectly fine. Yeah, a little expensive at 3 mana to give +4/+4, but I guess you're paying for the flexibility of it having cycling as well. And then 3 explosive vegetations, 4 mana. It's basically double rampant growth, which is what you really want in this deck. You really want to power out as much land as possible to get your beasts down. So yeah, explosive vegetation is pretty great. And then the other rare in the deck, weirdly an artifact in a red-green deck, is a Cryptic Gateway. So 5 mana enchantment, tap 2 untapped creatures you control. You can put a creature card from your hand into play that shares a creature type with each creature tapped this way. So basically, tap 2 beasts, get a beast from your hand into play for free. It has no other activation bits, so you can do this multiple times. You don't have to tap the gateway itself, so that's potentially really good. You've got like a decent number of elves actually, so you could potentially chain the elves together and be like, oh, I've got 2 elves, tap them, get another elf out, and just like, oh, and I'll play an elf, and like, oh, I'll tap those 2 elves, get another elf. So yeah, I think that's actually like a pretty fun rare to have actually, and like it really benefits this second, because again, your beasts are really expensive. So if you get like expensive beasts down. If you get the cheaper beasts down first, that you can use them to pay for the expensive ones. So yeah, I think, and it can be done at instant speed. So you just wait until the end of opponent's turn, tap them, bam, beast at end of turn. So yeah, I think that's a pretty fun rare to have in this deck. And then we have 2 each of Forgotten Cave and Tranquil Thicket. Just lands with cycling. These are good. I just like them. Putting cycling on land is just really good, because it means early game you can play it if you need mana. Late game, if you draw it and you don't need the land, you can just pay a mana, cycle it away, draw a card. Yeah, just think that's really good. Yeah, just I think I don't think every deck in this block has these, which is really confusing why it doesn't, because they're just so essential. Anyway. So it could have been overall, yeah. I think the deck is. I mean, it's pretty dumb and fun. It's just giant beasts. I mean, what's not to like? There's a few cards I think could have fit in here really well. So Avarax is one. So it's 5 mana for a 3/3 with haste. But when it enters the battlefield, you search your deck for another one, put it into your hand, so then you have another one for next turn. Yeah, I think that's just fun. Just shock. Shock would have been good to have in here, just like a really cheap burn spell to deal with early game creatures while you build up to your big beasts. Yeah, just shock would have been okay. Vitality Charm would have been nice to be in here as well. Makes either an insect token or gives something +1/+1 trample until end of turn, or regenerates a beast. So this deck kind of wants all those effects, because a 1/1 insect serves like early game as good as a blocker while you build up to your beasts. The +1/+1 and trample is really good, because like actually a lot of your big beasts don't actually have trample. Or the regenerate a beast for a single green mana. Like those are effects that, all those effects are useful in this deck. Histrodon could have been, I think, one of the rares instead, maybe instead of Tephroderm. So 5 mana for a 3/4 with trample. When it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, and it has morph. I just think it's just pretty good. Honestly, just pretty solid. Nothing really wrong with that. And I was really surprised this wasn't in here. Krosan Tusker, because this card is like made for this deck. So 7 mana for a 6/5, and you can cycle it. And when you cycle it, you search up for a basic land put into hand. So like, I don't understand why it's not in here, because like late game, bam, big beast. Early game, cycle it, get some land which you need, and draw a card. Yeah, really surprised Krosan Tusker wasn't in here. But it's all right, because Krosan Tusker has been like reprinted like 1 billion times, so it's fine. Got his day in the sun after all. So yeah, in summary, it's a big dumb red-green deck. We see them all the time. I really like them though, because I like big dumb red-green decks. So yeah, even if they're a little bit boring, I think this still would have been fun to play out of the box. But what do you think after seeing the deck list? Did you have this deck? Did you play it? Did you make changes to it? I'd really like to know. Put a comment below. We'll have a conversation about Devastation, but I will be back next time to look at the last theme deck from Onslaught. But until then, thank you for watching and listening, and have a good day.